Picture this. You're standing on a beach in Hawaii. The sun's out, the water is this ridiculous shade of blue, and your phone's blowing up with texts from friends back home saying, I'm so jealous of your life right now. And you're standing there thinking, nothing. Absolutely nothing. There's no joy, no gratitude, no presence. You're just kind of there, going through the motions, surviving instead of thriving, not even living, really. I didn't know it then, but that beach moment was the beginning of everything. And before this video is done, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Through years of coaching, NLP, mindset, and my own collapse, your life isn't hollow because you're broken or you're lazy or you're chasing the wrong dream. It's hollow because you've been living someone else's rules so well, you forgot you had permission to write your own. And the moment that you remember that that permission exists for you, for every single one of you, everything changes. For the next hour, I'm giving you one huge blueprint, one honest, practical, experience-backed framework of getting unstuck, getting out of this numbness and just going through the motions, and rebuilding your sense of purpose, rebuilding your life, the life you want and you need, and approaching 2026 and 2027 in a completely different manner. So let's get into it. So what do you call it when your life looks fine on paper, but it feels completely empty on the inside? You're functional, you're showing up to work, you're answering emails, you're paying your bills, you're going to the gym at least some of the time. Nobody around you would ever think anything was wrong because from the outside, everything looks perfectly fine. But inside, it's like you're operating on autopilot. Like you're watching your life, your own life, through a window instead of actually living it. Like you're 2 feet behind yourself, just watching yourself go through the motions. It's what I now call the high-functioning hollow. Watching because this whole video is for you. For me, it was Hawaii. And I want to tell you the full story. In other videos, I've gone into that. But this is definitely part of it. But I want to tell you the whole story because I think it matters. I just moved there chasing something different. Chasing a better life, more sunshine, a fresh start, get out of the damn cold of the Midwest. I had the girl of my dreams already. I had met her in Minnesota. She was going to move there with me. Got a good job opportunity. So, a good job, beautiful, amazing, soon-to-be wife, I thought. Beautiful location. People literally texting me from their offices on a gray Tuesday afternoon, saying they wish they had my life. By every external measure, I'd done it. I had arrived. The whole breakup happened, right? She didn't come. I went there, built a life. The breakup happened. I hit rock bottom. Wasn't great. This is after that, though, right? Once I rebuilt everything back up, I was still in Hawaii. I still had a great job, great friends, lived right near a beach, right? Still, by all measurable accounts, I was living the dream. But I remember standing on a beach one afternoon, looking out at the water, 85 and sunny, and feeling completely and utterly absent. Not there. Not peaceful absent, right? Not meditative, not mindfulness absent, not content, not anything. I was hollow. Like the signal had dropped and nobody had noticed yet. And the thing is I wasn't on the beach that day at all. Not really. Part of me was replaying something that went wrong 6 months earlier. Part of me was replaying the breakup. Another part was running worst case scenarios about something that hadn't even happened yet. And I was standing in paradise and living nowhere near it. And the crazy thing is the breakup, that rock bottom, that's what spurred all this on. Or who knows? Maybe I'd still be numb. Maybe I'd be married in Hawaii, but I would still be numb because this had been happening far before that relationship even happened. I just hadn't noticed. And yeah, so I was standing in paradise and I wasn't living anywhere near it. So here's what I've come to understand about that feeling. Because I've talked to enough people to know that this isn't just my story. So we break down not in one dramatic moment, but through something I call the piling effect now. We take memories of past tragedies, that relationship that fell apart, that business venture that failed, missed opportunities, the version of yourself that you lost somewhere along the way, and we stack them on our shoulders. And then, at the same exact time, while we're doing this, we load up visualizations of the future, of future disasters, right? Not what's going to go right. It's what if this doesn't work out? What if people know I don't know what I'm doing? What if I fail at this presentation tomorrow? What if I fail at this thing I'm starting 6 months from now? What if I've already peaked? What if I actually suck at life? Right? This is all shit I've said to myself, by the way. Past tragedies on one side, future fears on the other, and somewhere in the middle, crushing under the weight of both, is the present moment. The only place where your life is actually happening right now. And then, you open Instagram. Doom scrolling is doing something specific to us that I don't think we talk about enough. It's not just wasting time. It's doing so much more. It's a constant feed of other people's highlight reels, landing on top of an already overloaded and numb mind. You're already carrying yesterday's shit. You're already carrying tomorrow's. You're already carrying yesterday. And you're already carrying tomorrow. And now you're also comparing yourself to curated best moments, the highlight reel of everyone you've ever met. And the bad news cycle does the same damn thing from the other direction. It pulls you into every crisis that's happening everywhere in the world simultaneously, none of which you can actually do a damn thing about. And both of them are pulling you further and further from the one place you have any real power, which is right here, right now. I didn't see any of this clearly when I was in Minnesota, when I was in Hawaii even. What I saw was that I needed to change the scenery. So when I was in Minnesota, I made the biggest decision of my life. I packed up, I left the security of what I had, and I moved to Hawaii to build something, to help build something I actually had my hands in and could help build this small business. I thought I was escaping the hollow feeling. You know, I had a girl now, a girl I love now. She was going to come with me. I had a small business, not corporate America anymore, that I could actually contribute and help build up. A new environment, paradise, a real challenge. Again, something I could build with my own hands and see it happen. And I thought that would fix it. What I didn't really realize was that I was about to trade one cage for another. And the second one was harder to escape. Because here's what I didn't understand yet. That hollow feeling wasn't coming from Hawaii, wasn't coming from Minnesota. It wasn't coming from the job or the beach or the winter weather. I mean, you name it. Where it was coming from was my own head reset. From where my mind was living and from the stories that are running on repeat, just turning over and over without even knowing it. And that's what I want to dig into next. So here's something that nobody tells you about the human mind. Imagination is genuinely the rarest, most powerful thing you have. Animals can't do it. Most of what separates us from every other species on the planet comes down to this one ability: to picture something that doesn't exist yet and then go frickin' build it. That's extraordinary. That's crazy when you think about it. And we use it almost entirely against ourselves. Think about the last time your imagination was working overtime. Maybe you sent an important email and spent the next 3 hours replaying whether you worded it right. Maybe you lay awake Sunday night running through every possible way Monday could go wrong. Maybe you caught yourself worrying about whether it'll rain on the weekend and ruin the plans that you have that are still 4 days away. Or whether someone you haven't spoken to in months is quietly annoyed at you for something you can't even pinpoint. That's imagination. That's the exact same mental power that could be designing your future and building it up, spending its time generating disasters that haven't happened yet and probably never will. There's a concept in neuroscience, and I'll keep this simple because it's just the plain version is actually more useful. And I don't want to go into scientific diagramming here. The concept is that your brain, it functions like a GPS system. Whatever destination you type in, that's what you navigate towards. That's what it navigates towards. Jim Rohn had this amazing quote, always sticks with me: where your focus goes, your energy flows. Sounds simple, but if you type in, it'll find every wrong turn. Type in, what if this fails? It'll locate every piece of evidence that supports that, right? It's confirmation bias at its worst for you. Your brain is literally filtering millions of pieces of sensory information every single second and deciding what to show you. You don't have enough capacity to see everything that's happening. So it has to filter it. It has to, or you will overload. And it uses whatever you're focused on the most to make that decision of what it filters. I want you to sit back and think about that. It's crazy, right? It's very true. Focus on the negative long enough, and the world starts looking like it's made of nothing else. This is why I tell people gratitude journaling, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes a day, is so important, because it starts to train your brain to filter out the good. All of a sudden, you start seeing shit that you're grateful for all the time. A bird that flew by, like a hummingbird. I'm grateful for that. When you're focused on the negative, you don't see any of that. It's crazy. Your brain is literally filtering your reality. So anyway, this is where it gets personal, right? Because that GPS isn't just responding to what you think consciously. It's running deeper programs underneath. Programs called limiting beliefs. And they're not just bad moods or rough patches. A limiting belief is a conclusion that your brain locked in, usually from one bad moment 15 years ago. And it's been treating as fact ever since. And the language gives them away, right? I always mess things up when it really counts. I'm just not someone who can hold on to money. I've never been the kind of person who finishes what they start. Start to notice these words: always, never, just, kind of person. That's not describing a behavior. That's passing a verdict. That self-reinforcing part, that's what makes them so hard, impossible to shake. In fact, many people don't even know what a limiting belief is. They're just going through life with them, to be completely transparent. The fact that you know what it is, or you're hearing this right now, like, you're one of a small percentage of people that actually knows what it even is. My parents don't know what it is. My brothers and sisters have no idea. They're just going through life, So you believe you're a fraud, so you start acting uncertain, second guessing yourself at every turn, pulling back at the exact moments that you need to move forward. And then that behavior produces the outcome that proves the belief, right? And now, your brain logs it as more evidence to support that limiting belief. The program runs harder. Round and round it goes. It's just a vicious cycle. And the whole time, you think it's just who you are, when actually it's a script that you picked up somewhere and forgot you were still reading, right? From the high school counselor that told me I wasn't good enough to go to college and I could never move out of a small town. It took me 12 years to shake that. It took me until I was fucking 30. Pardon my French, but it is what it is. And that's only because I realized what it actually was. I realized it was a limiting belief and where it came from. I had to do that work. So the growth mindset entry point, and I mean the real one, not the poster version, isn't telling yourself everything is great. It's a much quieter shift. It's stopping treating your current state as a verdict and starting to treat it as a starting point. I haven't figured this out yet, instead of I'm not good at this. That's one word, yet such an important word in the English vocabulary in this instance. It breaks open the whole locked door. Yet means it's not final. It's not a final verdict. Here's the thing I want you to sit with. The reason I felt nothing on the beach in Hawaii wasn't the beach. It wasn't the job or the location or the life I'd been building. It was where my mind was living. Running old programs in the background while paradise played out right in front of me, completely unwatched. Myself, reset. There's a specific NLP technique that I've used with clients and I've used on myself. I've had coaches use on me that can loosen a limiting belief in under 5 minutes. Limiting beliefs aren't just thoughts. They're encoded as internal representations, images, sounds, sensations. They're so much more than thoughts, with specific qualities that your brain uses to decide how much weight that you give them all the time. Change those qualities and the conviction behind the limiting belief shifts. We'll get into exactly how it works later, but first, we need to talk about the thing that locks those beliefs into place and keeps them running in the background. So, we talked about programs running inside your head, the limiting beliefs, but there's this other force, one that works from the outside in. And it might be the most powerful thing keeping you stuck. And I apologize, this is a long video. I'm taking a drink of my butter coffee. So I call it FOPO. You've probably heard that term. It's getting bigger now. I didn't come up with it, just to be clear. Not claiming I did, but it's fear of other people's opinions. And before you think, yeah, I know about that, I don't really care what people think, just stay with me. Hang on a sec, because almost nobody who says that actually means it, including me for a long time. FOPO is an invisible force that makes you stay quiet in the meeting when you have the best idea in the room. It's what makes you post the safe version of yourself online and keep the real version locked away. It's the reason you haven't started the thing, said the thing, or left the thing you already know isn't working. It doesn't announce itself. It just quietly shrinks your world, one avoided risk at a time, until the life that you're living is a smaller, safer, more acceptable version of the one you actually wanted. For me, probably the clearest version of this played out when I moved to Thailand. When I left Hawaii to build something from scratch, a business, a life, a real sense of purpose, there was this immediate terror that had nothing to do with whether the business would work or not. It was about what people would say. And I didn't even really realize that's where the terror came from. That's why this one's sneaky. You may not even know that's where it's coming from, that it's fear of what other people are thinking and saying and going to say to you and think, about what you're going to do. That's what's really sneaky about it. The people back home who thought leaving a stable job was reckless. The people who smiled and said, good luck, but you could just see the doubt written all over their faces. The questions that they asked, and the worst ones, the quiet ones, who didn't say anything at all because they were already waiting to see how it fell apart. When things started going well, I was almost afraid to talk about it. It felt like bragging. It felt like tempting fate. It felt like I was setting myself up to look really, really damn stupid a little later down the road. And then when things went sideways, as they eventually did, the fear flipped completely. Now I was terrified to talk about it because of the I told you so's, the I told you so ghosts, so to speak. The people I'd imagined in my head lined up to confirm the whole thing had been foolish from the start. That's FOPO doing its full damage from start to frickin' finish. It stops you from celebrating when the things work, and it stops you from being honest when they don't. Then you can't learn from the failures that you're creating or that have happened, the mistakes that have been made, right? You're afraid to talk about that. That's where you have to shift and pivot and learn from them and talk about them. It traps you in this performance where you can't actually live your own life because you're too busy managing the frickin' audience. Social media makes us 10 times worse, by the way, when you're building something, a business, a brand, this new version of yourself that you should be proud of, and you're putting it out there online. The feedback loop becomes immediate, visible, public. It's a scoreboard, man. It's a public scoreboard. Every post is a small referendum on whether you matter. And when the likes drop, when the following goes flat, when something you worked really damn hard for gets no response at all, it doesn't just feel like bad metrics. It hits the same part of your brain that processes rejection, because that's effectively what it is. That feedback loop, when it's running well, feels like validation, right? When it stops, it feels like withdrawal. And suddenly you're making decisions about your actual life. Think about that. You're making decisions about your actual life based on the engagement rate of a post. There's also something very worth naming here about where fear of success fits into all this. Because FOPO isn't just about failure. A lot of people are just as scared of what happens if they actually win. If I succeed, people will expect more every time. If I stand out, they'll attack me or resent me. If things go well, I'll lose the relationships that depend on me staying small. This might not be the exact verbiage in your brain, but it's there. And that's not irrational. It's a pattern with a name. Fear of success. It happens. It runs on the same engine as FOPO, Both of them are about managing the audience. Both of them shrink your world one avoided risk at a time. Now, here's the thing that genuinely changed how I think about criticism and judgment, and it's not what you'd expect. People don't bother with those they consider beneath them. Think about it. Nobody writes a long, passionate comment about something they genuinely don't care about. Nobody stays up all night obsessing over someone they think is irrelevant. Judgment, criticism, that I told you so energy, these aren't signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're very visible. They're signs that you're doing something that makes people feel something, which usually means you're moving in a direction they haven't had the courage to move in themselves. Courage, by the way, has nothing to do with not being scared. Courage is being terrified and doing the damn thing anyway. Hitting send on the pitch with your hands literally shaking. Posting the video when everything in you is saying don't. Quitting your job to focus on that business that you started, everyone else be damned. That feeling isn't a warning. That's just what growth feels like from the inside. So what do you do when people judging you aren't strangers on the internet? What about friends and family who maybe don't believe in you? The people whose opinions you actually care about and take to heart. This is where Mel Robbins' let them theory comes into play. And I want to give it to you straight because it's one of those ideas that almost sounds too simple until you try living it. And I just read this book not too long ago. It's a banger, man. Check it out. The core of it, though, is this. You can't control what other people do, think, say, or feel about you. Not your parents, not your oldest friends, not the person who followed you for 2 years and then quietly unfollowed you last Tuesday. You have zero control over any of it. And the energy that you're spending trying to manage, influence, or preempt those opinions, that energy is the exact thing that's keeping you stuck. You're pouring all your fuel into an engine that isn't even yours to run. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them shake their heads at the choices you're making. Let them walk away. Because here's the truth. You were never in control of that anyway. Just ripping the Band-Aid off there, but the only thing that you were ever doing was exhausting yourself, pretending otherwise. I lived this in Thailand, and not in a theoretical way. When COVID hit, the business building from nothing, the thing I'd left the safety of Hawaii for, the thing I'd bet on myself to create, collapsed. Borders closed, revenue disappeared. Everything I'd worked for over the last couple of years went sideways in a matter of weeks, really. And I had to leave. That was the worst part, right? I'd built a life there. I had a girlfriend there. I had to pack up this life that I'd built and walk away from it, saying I'd be back in a couple of months. Little did we know, right? And the fear that sat on top of all of that practical devastation wasn't just about money or logistics. It was the judgment. The quiet chorus in my head of every person who had ever raised an eyebrow when I said I was moving to Thailand to start a business. The ones who had called it a phase, the ones who had smiled and said nothing. Now here I was having to leave with nothing to show for all of that. And the story in my head was, they were right all along. I'm a damn failure, man. Ugh. And let me tell you what I wish someone had told me in that moment. Let them think you failed. Because whether or not they do or don't, it changes absolutely nothing about what you do next. The only story that matters is the one you're writing about yourself. And the moment you hand that pen to someone else, you've already lost. And look, the beautiful thing about all this advice really, but about this, it doesn't just go for the big things, right? It's the big things like starting a business, moving to another continent. It goes for the small things, like publishing that first blog post or that first YouTube video and hearing criticism about it. It took me probably, when I started blogging, I was still in Hawaii. It took me, honest to God, probably 6 months to launch that first blog post. Because I was always learning something else, or something else had to be just right, or this had to be right, or someone else had to read it first. I didn't know it, right? I was playing that I need to learn more card, even though I'd learned everything I needed to know, because I was scared to hit publish. I was scared to see what people would think. I was scared as hell to put myself out there. So that's, again, the great thing about this is it goes for when people you consider your friends do something hurtful towards you. Trying to control what people think of you is like standing outside in a storm, trying to negotiate with the weather, with the rain. You can yell at it, you can be pissed at it, you can reason with it, you can make yourself miserable about it, and it's going to keep raining. The weather, it doesn't care. And most people, honestly, are far too preoccupied with their own storms to be as focused on yours as you imagine they are. Here's what changes when you genuinely let them. Not as a performance of not caring, but as a real internal release. You get your energy back, pretty much all of it, a lot of it. Rehearsing explanations, pre-defending yourself against criticism that hadn't even arrived yet. How often do you do that? Standing in the shower or standing in the mirror and you're pre-defending with an argument against someone else about what could happen. Suddenly, all that energy, though, it's available for something else. That's a lot of mental energy. It's available now for the actual work, for the actual life you want to build, for figuring out what you want now rather than defending what you lost. Mel Robbins frames it simply. You are not responsible for making other people understand or approve of your choices. That's not your job. It never was. And the sooner you stop treating it like it is, the lighter everything starts to get. There's a reason this feels so hard, though, right? And it's worth being honest about. Staying stuck has a payoff. Not a good one, but a real one. When you're stuck, you don't have to risk being wrong again. You don't have to risk people's judgment again. You don't have to face the fear of success or the fear of failure because you never fully commit to either. You just stay right in that comfortable center. The stuck feeling is uncomfortable, sure, but it's familiar uncomfortable. It's why people stay in relationships when you know it's not working from the outside, either of them. It's comfortable. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's familiar. It's not great, but they know what to expect every day. They don't have to step outside their comfort zone. And familiar always feels safe in the unknown, even when the unknown is the thing you actually want. That's the secondary gain, the hidden benefit of not changing. And you can't let it go until you've looked it in the eye and named it for what it is, a protection strategy that stopped working a long time ago. Because you're going to sit there and stay numb. You're going to just be going through the motions, if you don't try at least. Let them have their opinions. Let them tell their versions of your story. Who gives a damn? You've got your own version to write. Keep that pen to yourself. And it's considerably more interesting than the one they're imagining from the sidelines, I promise you. But let them is only half of it. The second half is where the real shift happens. And it's a piece that almost everyone skips. So let them is the release, and it's great. It's amazing. Let you is the decision that follows it. Most people hear let them, and they feel kind of a relief, a loosening. And that's real. It's a great feeling. But they stop there. And what happens next is they just kind of drift. They've dropped the rope now on everyone else's opinion, or someone else's opinion if it's a specific case, but they haven't picked up anything in its place. So the freedom is there, sure, and they don't know what to do with it necessarily. But it's not a mindset shift. That becomes a gap. Let you is the active side. It's where the agency comes back. So let them ignore your message and let yourself stop refreshing the thread and put that energy into the next step, the next pitch. Let them tell everyone the business failed. Who cares? And let yourself treat that failure as the most expensive education you ever bought and go again with that new experience, that new learning in mind. Let them stay comfortable in the version of you they decided on years ago. And let yourself outgrow it, quietly and without needing their permission or their applause. The word let matters here. It's not force yourself or grind through it, it's permission. A lot of us are waiting for someone external to give us this green light on so many things, like me with a blog post, right? We're waiting to feel perfectly ready. We're waiting for the fear to completely pass. We're waiting for the right moment when everything lines up perfectly and it finally feels safe to go. That moment's not coming. Never does. Never has, never will. Let you is you giving yourself the green light instead. So here's the connection back to those limiting beliefs and other stuff we talked about too earlier. When you're living inside FOPO, other people's opinions become a script for your own internal dialogue. Their doubt becomes your self-doubt. Their I told you so becomes the voice in your head at 3 a.m, over and over. You stop acting out your own story at some point and you start acting out theirs. Let you is the cut point. It's where you take the pen back. It's yours now, right? You take the pen back and you're writing your own damn story. And practically, it doesn't feel like a breakthrough moment that you're going to write about later. It feels more like a quiet Tuesday decision. Let them doubt the path you're on and let yourself take the next step anyway. Even if it's small, even if you're not sure, even if your hands are doing that shaking that we talked about earlier. You act not because the fear is gone, but because you've decided that your direction, your path, matters more than their opinion of that path, of anything. When I was rebuilding after Thailand, after the collapse, after the leaving with nothing, after leaving everything behind, after the whole thing I'd bet on fell apart, this was the shift that actually started to move things. It wasn't a technique. It wasn't a journal prompt or a morning routine. It was one quiet internal decision. I'm not running this recovery for my audience. I'm not running it for anyone who's looking in. I'm not doing this to prove anything to anyone. I'm doing it because it's mine, and that's enough. Not overnight, not loudly, right? Decision. It was just decided. And that decision, sure, it didn't make the rebuilding easier in the practical sense. There were still hard calls. There were still months of figuring out what the hell came next. There were still days where I had a gap between where I was and where I wanted to be that felt absolutely ginormous and like too big to overcome. But something had shifted underneath it all, like foundationally. I wasn't dragging the weight of everyone else's narrative anymore. I had let them have their version of the story. They can have it, run with it, say what they want about it, talk about it behind my back. I don't give a shit anymore. And I had let myself write a different one. Your version is still being written. That's actually the whole point. And now it's time that we talk about the fuel that gets it written. So let's talk about failure. And let me tell you what failure actually is. Because I think that most of us, we've been running the wrong definition our entire lives. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's not the wall at the end of the road, the thing that stops us. It's the raw material. It's the data you need for your next attempt to run on. And the people who've built the most, not just money, but actual lives they're proud of, aren't the ones who failed less. They're the ones who failed more, usually a lot more, and kept going anyway, because they understood what the failure was actually telling them. That's not a motivational line. That's a pattern. Research on serial entrepreneurs, like the people who've built something, lost it, and built again, consistently finds that the second and third ventures of these folks, it outperforms the first ones. Not despite the failure, but because of the failure. The ones who rebound successfully aren't just tougher, they do something specific. They convert that failure into a structured learning instead of just surviving that failure. They do the postmortem, which a lot of us don't do. I didn't used to do, right? They do the postmortem because it can be hard because you're now looking in the face of this failure and you just want to run away from it. You want to escape it because it's bad, right? Well, if you treat failure as good, as data, nothing more than data in everything that you do, of all, it changes your mindset. But you do the postmortem. You ask what assumptions they made or you made that turned out to be wrong. They ask where they scaled too fast. They ask what they ignored because they didn't want to see it. That stuff's all important. That process, reflective, making sense of the situation rather than denial or blame or running away or turning a blind eye, is what separates the ones who go again and do better from the ones who either go again and repeat the same mistakes and fail again, or the ones who don't even try. The ones who rebounded successfully weren't just tougher. They were better informed. They learned a huge lesson, a lot of lessons. They knew which assumptions to test before betting everything. They knew where the blind spots lived now. That failure had taught him things that no business course, no mentor, no amount of careful planning and everything lining up and being just right could have. It charged hella intuition in the hardest possible currency. But you know what? They spent those lessons well. Hawaii, Thailand, losing someone I loved, the business collapsing, starting over multiple times in two completely different countries, two completely different versions of what I thought my life was going to look like. Each time it happens, the immediate feeling wasn't useful. It was hard, right? It was just pain and confusion and that specific kind of exhaustion that comes from having tried really damn hard and still lost. But underneath all that, something was being built. Not a resume line, for sure. Not a comeback story for social media. An understanding of what I actually needed to do differently and who I needed to become to do it. That's the switch that Carol Dweck, that her work on mindset keeps coming back to. And it's worth being exact about here. Fixed mindset says, I'm just not someone who can do this. Plain and simple. That's an identity verdict. It closes the door. A growth mindset, however, it says, I haven't figured it out yet. There's that word again, that one word, yet. It keeps the door open. Such a small word, such an important word. It doesn't pretend the failure didn't happen, right? In this instance, it just refuses to let the failure be the final word, the final verdict. Now, and this is where it can get practical, right? Because I promised you a blueprint, not a pep talk. Let's close the loop I opened a little bit ago. The 5-minute NLP technique for loosening and limiting belief. This stuff, it sounds too simple to work. It sounds a little out there, but I promise you this stuff works. I've lived it. I've helped other people live it. Neurolinguistic programming is a thing, man. Your subconscious is wild. So here's how it works, and I'll keep this simple because we want simple here. First, you name the belief out loud, not in your head, out loud, right? Like, I always give up when it gets hard. Always. Really? Always? Every single time? Is that always true? Find 2 moments, just 2. Think back where that wasn't true. They don't have to be big moments either. They just have to be real moments. Because what you're doing is you're introducing a crack in that certainty, in that foundation. The belief is only powerful because your brain treats it as absolute, as fact. 2 counterexamples, they break the always. They break that fact. Now there's a crack in your foundation there. Your brain, your subconscious has to take that into account. Then ask one question: what is this belief actually doing for me? And it sounds like a strange thing to ask about something that's hurting you, but every limiting belief has a positive intent underneath it. Some original protective function that it was trying to serve. I mean, people forget that with everything our brain does. I mean, they're crazy, right? I mean, wow. But our brains are not wired to make us happy. Your brain is not wired to make you happy. Your brain is not wired for success. They're wired to help us survive. That's it. That's bottom line. They're not wired for this world, man. Our brains are running software from the first iPhone. They're running software from the first mobile phones. I don't even know, from pagers still. You know, they're still playing to 10,000 years ago. When we were running from saber-toothed tigers, every decision our brains make is from that point of view. Living in a tribe, running from saber-toothed tigers, being hunter-gatherers. So it's the point of view of protection. I always give up when it's hard might be protecting you from the shame of a visible failure. I'm not someone who figures money out might be keeping you from taking the risk, making a decision that feels risky, and staying small, staying protected. I'm too scared to speak in front of people. Maybe because if you acted a fool and got kicked out of a tribe, you could die because you're on your own. Today, reset. Our brains are running that old software where not taking that risk today is running the same program of not taking that risk that could have gotten you killed 10,000 years ago. You're not fighting the belief when you ask this. at all, right? You're just looking for what it was trying to protect so you can find a better way to meet that. Now, here's the part that sounds strange until you actually try it and see the results. Um, so notice where that belief lives as an image in your mind. Most people have one. It might be vague, but it's there. Notice how it looks. Notice how it looks. Is it, where is it located? Is it color or black and white? Is it, how big is it? And then you shrink it, you dim it, you push it back further away, smaller, grayer. So what I would do is like our subconscious, it lives in images and video. Like that's how it remembers things. So when something hurts really bad, like a breakup, especially if it's new, it's right front and center, right? You're playing that video, it's very vivid, it's very clear, in color, and it's just right there. So wherever this belief is located, you want to take that picture and you want to shrink it down, you want to move it maybe to the bottom, you want to push it away, make it black and white if it's color, smaller, grayscale it, right? And then you build the new belief as an image. And you pull that new image forward. You make it bigger, you make it brighter, you make it closer, keep getting it closer. I learn from setbacks and I go again, right in front of you, clear, vivid as hell. That's not theater. It's how your brain encodes conviction through imagery and proximity and brightness. You're not deleting the old belief. I mean, you can't just delete that, but you're changing its authority. Right now, it's small, it's in the corner, it's black and white. The sound is dulled if there was sound. The new image, your new belief, that's front and center, that's bright. Now you pair that with the comfort zone reality. Pair that with a comfort zone reality. That growth lives right at the edge of slightly terrifying, not in the wreckage of completely overwhelmed. A little pressure sharpens you. Too much breaks you. We're aiming for the middle ground, the place where it's genuinely uncomfortable, but it's still within reach. You don't overhaul your life tomorrow. You get 1% better today. That's it. One conversation, one phone call that you've maybe been avoiding. One day. So what does 1% actually look like on a Tuesday when you feel like doing absolutely nothing? Let's talk about it. You reset. Let's talk about just doing the damn thing. All right? That Tuesday when you feel like doing absolutely nothing, it's a bad day, something hit you hard, that's not the exception. That's the actual test. And the answer isn't what you would expect. You don't find purpose first and then act. You act first and purpose shows up later. That order matters more than almost anything else in this blueprint or this TED Talk I'm doing here. Because the whole trap of being stuck is waiting to feel differently before you move. It's a trap. That's not how it works. You're waiting for motivation to arrive like a package, and it doesn't work that way. Motivation is a byproduct of momentum, not the other way around. But before you can build momentum, sometimes you need to break the freeze entirely. Because when you're deep in the hollow, not just tired, but genuinely flat, the kind of flat where the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels physically heavy, feels not just hard, but impossible. The thoughts are part of the problem. What you need first is something physical. This is the 30-second pattern interrupt, and it sounds too simple to work until you understand what it's actually doing. Cold water on your face, that's one of my favorites. Cold water on your face, 10 jumping jacks, 30 seconds of box breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. All right, that's box breathing. Any one of these, pick one. I would do 2. I did 2. I did cold water on your face. I always had a bucket and I'd throw ice in it. Man, that changes your thought processes fast. And then I would do box breathing. That settles you down. They both work different core systems of you, and they both help a lot. Even they both help for stress too, FYI. But any of these, all right, just pick one. What you're doing here is you're sending a signal to your nervous system that the threat is over, right? You're hijacking your own nervous system, essentially. Your physiology is stuck in a loop. Your mind will follow the body, but the body has to move first. It's not motivational strategy, it's basic biology. Interrupt the state physically, and the mental fog starts to shift. Not completely, no, and not permanently, but enough to make that first small step, enough to make a crack. And that first small step is literal. Make your bed. Take the shower, man. Step outside for 10 minutes. When I was in a funk, not only was I not making my bed, I wasn't taking a shower for days. I mean, I wasn't seeing anyone, but that's not the point, right? These aren't metaphors for bigger things. They're medicine. Step outside for 10 minutes. Small physical actions break the paralysis loop that you're stuck in by proving to your brain through actual evidence, not encouragement, not just internal talking, that you're in motion. Each one is a tiny signal. Each little thing you do is a tiny signal. I'm someone who does things. I want to tell you what my first day of rebuilding actually looked like after Thailand. Stories of comeback. Reset. Because I think the Instagram version of comeback stories does real damage. It's not how it looks, right? It wasn't a sunrise run or a journal entry full of clarity. Boom, and I was good. It was one phone call I'd been putting off. That's it. That's literally it. One call that I'd been avoiding for weeks because making it meant admitting to myself and to someone I cared about where things actually stood. I made it. It went fine. Nothing transformed, but something small had shifted. The gap between intending to do something and actually doing it had closed. Just once, but that registered somewhere important. It was a little like when I hit rock bottom in Hawaii, but I cut it off before it got to that point this time. It was the point I knew I had to change because admitting it out loud was admitting it to myself. Every small action after that was a vote. Not for the outcome, you can't control outcomes, but for the identity. Each time you do the small, hard thing, as small as that could be, you're casting a vote for the version of yourself that moves rather than waits. You don't need a majority overnight. You just need to start the tally, make that first tick. Here's something worth noting about what happens in your brain when you're in motion versus when you're just stuck. When you're moving, actually doing something, even something small, making a bed, hopping in the shower, your mind has less available bandwidth simulators. Reset. Your mind has less available bandwidth to run the catastrophe simulations that we talked about in the imagination trap section. Action and rumination compete for the same resource, which means every micro win isn't just a step forward in a practical sense. It's also a pattern interrupt for the mental state, for that mental spiral that you're in. You're not just making your bed, you're crowding out the voice that's been telling you it's pointless to try. You don't need a plan for the whole year here. You need a plan for the next 30 minutes. Start there, then see what's next. I'm going to jump into one of my favorite topics, which is gratitude. I know it's almost overused now. So people are like, gratitude, yeah. Everyone does gratitude. But I think it's ultimately, it gets overlooked now because of that. Because a lot of people get a lot wrong about gratitude. They think it's a feeling, like something you either have or you don't have. Something that it shows up naturally when life is good, and it disappears when it isn't. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is gratitude is a daily intervention, a tactical reset that truly changes what your brain is scanning for throughout the day, which changes what it finds, which changes what you do next and how you feel. It's kind of crazy, but remember that GPS metaphor that we were talking about earlier? Your brain filters reality based on whatever you've trained it to look for. So it's that whole focus thing, right? That's not just true for negative focus and negative thoughts and negative things. It works the exact same way in the other direction. So when you deliberately and consistently direct your attention towards what's good, specific, and what's real in your life, you're not putting on rose-tinted glasses. You're reprogramming the filter. Right? Where your focus goes, your energy flows. Same thing works here. It works the exact same way. Your brain starts to all of a sudden notice these things that it was screening out before. Small wins, unexpected help. These can be very small things. The moments that would have slipped past entirely if you hadn't been looking. And it's not because the world suddenly changed. It's because your filter did. And it's really backed by research. Reset. And regular gratitude practice is consistently linked to lower lower baseline anxiety, better sleep, an increased positive effect, not as a vague feel better outcome, right? But as a measurable shift in people's moods, in stress physiology, and in attention patterns. Your cortisol drops, which I've had a major problem with cortisol lately. That's just one of the reasons. But cortisol can have such an impact on everything you do day to day, on your sleep, on your mood, on your focus, on everything. The parasympathetic nervous system becomes more active. And that's the one that's responsible for rest and recovery, not threat response. We're so used to the threat response one becoming more active. You move from hypervigilance, which is scanning for what's wrong, to something closer to this calm, open awareness that I think we should all be in a lot more. And that's exactly the state from which good decisions get made, good methodical decisions, not reactionary. So the 5-minute journal format that I use now, I've done like journaling or gratitude journals for a long time. I switch it up a bit, but 5-minute format I use now is it's not complicated. That's the biggest thing, right? And that's the biggest thing I want for you. MVP, minimum viable product, or minimum viable thing that we can ship today that can help you in 5 minutes and that you can see a difference. So here's all we do. 3 things that you're genuinely grateful for. 1 thing that you want to focus on today, and 1 thing that you're letting go of. That's the whole practice, 5 minutes. All right. And I'll tell you, I do it now before bed. I will write down 3 things that happened that were good that day. And then in the morning, I recall that up and I either continue on it or I just reread that. And then I add the focus thing. And then, because I don't know, just a way to do it twice and then I reread it. But either way, doing something with it in the morning helps to set your focus for the day. It's really great. Like reset. But what really makes this work is specificity. All right. Not I'm grateful for my family. That's just so abstract and it's good, right? It's good to put down. And hey, as you start out, it may take a little bit to get like more specific. So just do what works at first. It starts to become second nature, trust me. But you want things like, I'm grateful that my sister called to check in on me yesterday when she didn't have to. You know, my sister I haven't talked to in 6 months texted me like a week ago and it was out of the blue and it felt great. You know, she's not like we're close, but you know, we see each other on holidays and talk every once in a while, but it was nice getting that text from her. And that's specific enough to be real. It's specific enough to land with you. And it's specific enough for your brain to register it as evidence that your life contains genuine good things. The more specific the entry, the more your brain believes it. And the more your brain starts then hunting for similar things to add to tomorrow's list. That's the filter shifting in real time. That's you noticing in real time what your brain is more grateful for. That was probably the craziest thing to me was as I started my gratitude journal, this happened in Hawaii, as I was going through it, what I started to see was just little things as I was taking a walk or little things that would happen that I picked up as, oh, wow, that's beautiful. Oh, wow, that's really cool. Things I would have just passed on before in my haze, you know? And that's what's really great about the journal. It's not those 5 minutes. It's what it impacts for the rest of your day. So the letting go prompt, that's pretty important too. It's I would say just as important as the gratitude items. This is something I added in later. It's pretty cool. So you're not adding to the positive attention, but what you're doing is subtracting a piece of that load that's weighing you down day to day. So you name 1 thing that you're releasing each morning. Maybe it's a resentment. Maybe it's like a worry. Reset. And a worry that you can't act on, you know, a conversation you've been replaying in your head over and over. And it gives the brain like a small, clear instruction. This is not on today's list. Look, it's not going to resolve anything permanently, but what it does is it creates this boundary between what you're carrying and what you're choosing to put down for right now. Because we all have so much shit up in our brain spinning around all the time, man. It's exhausting. So before we conclude the gratitude part, I just want to give you a genuine challenge here. Again, MVP, minimum viable product. Not because challenges in YouTube's usually amount to anything, by the way, but because I know from my own experience, from working with clients, from myself, that 7 days of practice can change a lot. It changes something in you. 30 days even better, but just 7 consistent days is all I'm asking right now, 5 minutes a day. It's not magic, okay? It's not It's not overnight transformation. It's just a quiet, consistent shift in what you notice and therefore what you believe is available to you. 7 days, one entry every morning. Do the night thing if you want. I'm not telling you to do that. Just 5 minutes. Three specifics, one focus, one release. That's it. That's the whole thing. All right. Try it before you decide whether it works. Most of the conversation so far has been around getting unstuck and focusing on addition, you know, new habits, new routines, new practices, new ways of thinking. And a lot of what we've talked about really falls into that category. The gratitude journal, the micro wins, the pattern interrupt, all the belief work. All that asks you to bring in something new into what you already have going on, which is a big ask. We all have a lot going on, right? I know some of this stuff is meant to long-term better you and to subtract, but short-term it's adding things in. There is an equally important side to this that this is one of my favorite topics, actually, that nobody wants to really talk about. It's getting bigger out there now. You know, you hear about it, but it is one of the hardest damn things because it's also less exciting and it's considerably more uncomfortable. Getting unstuck, though, it's not just about what you start doing and start adding. It's about what you stop. It's about saying no. Your energy is finite, y'all. It doesn't matter how disciplined you are, how motivated you feel, how clear your vision is in this moment. If you're bleeding energy in all the wrong places, you'll never have enough time, enough energy left. You'll never have enough left for the things that actually matter to you. And that's what happened to me for so long. I would drain myself during the day, get up at 4 a.m., and then when it was time for me to sit down at 5 p.m. and work on my business, I was freaking drained. Still happens sometimes, but man, you know, and then you're not fully there, you're not fully present. So the stuff that's really important to you takes a back seat and it's done sloppily, right? So most of us are bleeding constantly in ways that we've normalized, though, so thoroughly that we don't even notice it anymore. There's the doom scrolling we mentioned earlier, which we all do, and we all do it far too much. It is terrible for you. It's the WhatsApp threads that you haven't muted, but you hate reading. The friend who only calls when they need something. We all have this friend, right? And then they go quiet the moment you do. The commitment that you said yes to months ago because you didn't want to seem difficult at the time, and now it's taken up 2 hours every week that you genuinely can't afford. And for people that say it's just 2 hours or it's just an hour, all of that adds up. The news app that you open the first thing every morning and close feeling worse than when you woke up. Every single one of these is withdrawal from the same account. All comes from the same place. The one that you need to be making deposits into, not taking out from. So here's the connection back to FOPO too, because it's very real. Most of the things that you can't say no to, you can't say no because of what people will think. That's it. It's not about you, it's about what others will think. The social obligation isn't real. The expectation is real. But your participation in it, it's a choice. It's a choice that you have. You say yes to things that drain you because no feels risky. And risky feels like a verdict on your character. And you've spent too long letting other people's verdicts matter far too much. Me too, you know, not just pointing the finger here, pointing it right back at me as well. So you keep saying yes. And that account keeps getting smaller and smaller. And you wonder why you feel so flat by Thursday. Hell, by Tuesday sometimes, right? Let you, by the way, something we talked about a little bit ago, applies directly here as well. Letting yourself protect your time and energy is not a personality flaw. It's not selfish in the way that the word usually gets weaponized. And I'm sorry, when people weaponize that on you, F them. It's the prerequisite for every other thing in this blueprint. Jeez. Reset. It's the prerequisite for every other thing in this blueprint. You cannot build a 1% better life with a completely depleted account that never builds back up. The math just doesn't work. So think of it this way. Every yes is a trade. You say yes to an energy draining obligation, and somewhere else in your week, no gets written automatically against something that you actually wanted to do, something that could have moved you forward, something that mattered, something that could launching that first blog post, working on your website, getting your first offer out there, taking that class you've wanted to take, something that matters to you and your goals, um, automatic no. Or you have less energy for it. You don't see the second transaction though, but it's happening every time. So I challenge you to start thinking about that. When you say yes to something because you feel obligated to, think about that no down the line. So what's one thing that you could say no to this week that would give you back an hour of your life? Not a month from now, just this week. One thing. Write it down if you need to. That hour, that's the first brick. So I want to shift now quickly to this quote that I heard, and I remember it so clearly because it was when I was in Hawaii, and it was when just shit hit the fan. And it was my first real big loss. Breakup happens. I was going through it, man. And I heard this quote, and I think it was maybe a Tim Ferriss podcast at the time or something. Sometimes life takes what you want to give you something you need. And that it was profound to me. It always stuck with me. It doesn't make it any better in the moment, but that stuck with me so much. There's a specific kind of clarity that only arrives in retrospect. You can't access it while you're in the middle of losing something or while you're in the middle of something, be it a business, a relationship. You just can't access it. And only if you go looking for it rather than spending all your energy trying to explain it away or assigning blame. And I want to be careful here because there's a version of this idea that can do real damage. The everything happens for a reason framing sounds comforting, but to me, it's a way of outsourcing the meaning. It implies there's some external intelligence that's arranged your suffering and with your best interests in mind. And whether you believe that or not, it takes you out of the driver's seat. And I just don't like it. It makes you a passenger in your own story. So then why are we even trying to do anything? If it's all like mapped out for us, just sit back and let it happen. So that's not what I'm offering here. So I want to be careful there. It's this. You get to choose what meaning you assign to what happens to you. Not the event itself. You rarely get to choose that, but the interpretation of it, the lesson that you pull from it, the direction that it points you in afterwards. That's yours. Nobody can take that from you, and nobody can give it to you either. You have to construct it deliberately, which is harder than it sounds when the loss is still fresh. I know, I get that. I mean, when Thailand fell apart, when the business collapsed, when I had to leave the life I'd been building, when the relationship that had been woven through it all unraveled at the same time, the immediate meaning that my brain reached for was the obvious one, that yours probably would reach for too. I'd failed. I'd taken the risk, I'd bet on myself, and I'd lost. Every voice that I'd been trying not to listen to turned out to be right. That was a story, and it felt very true, especially right in the moment. The problem with that story is where it leads. If the meaning of Thailand is you failed, then the instruction embedded in that is don't try again, stay smaller, keep playing small, stay safer, keep your head down. And I watched that instruction almost take hold in the months after I left, in the flatness, in the going through the motions that felt way uncomfortably familiar to how it felt when I was standing on that beach in Hawaii. What shifted wasn't a single conversation or a single moment of insight. It was a decision that I made quietly and more than once to look for a different meaning here. You know, life took something I wanted, but maybe there's still something I need that I can get out of this. So not a false meaning either, and not an all, it was all for the best, like generic sugarcoat it, and definitely not, it was just meant to happen. It's just more precise. What did losing the business actually teach me about how I'd built it? What had the relationship in its ending shown me about what I'd been unwilling to look at while it was intact? That's an important one, I think, for anyone getting out of a relationship. Always something to learn there. What did I know now that I hadn't before? That I could have only learned by going through this specific fire. In NLP, there's actually a technique called a tense shift that works exactly on this level. And again, this is one of those things, NLP, it's your subconscious, man. So it's like these little tweaks, then they actually make a big difference. So it's when you say, I lost everything, you're using a present tense emotional weight to describe a past event. And the loss feels current every time you say that. Every time you say, I lost everything, it feels current. It feels active. It feels like it's ongoing. You're still in the process of losing it. The reframe is to move fully past it, move past that event, and add what came after. In the past, I lost everything. Since then, I've built a more honest understanding of what I'm actually building towards. For me, I'm building something more real. Like what I was doing before, it didn't have. I wasn't passionate about it. I could do it. I was more passionate about the talking to people with it. So now, I'm building something more real for me, aligned with who I am, who I want to be, and what I'm passionate about. So the event stays real, but the timeline changes. Instead of right here, you're moving it into the past. So on the new timeline, the loss is no longer the final word. It's a paragraph in the middle of a longer story. Every collapsed venture, every ended relationship, every moment where the ground swayed or gave way beneath something that you had worked hard to stand on, some foundation that you were building. Those were all giving you information. The question isn't whether that information was worth the cost, because ripping the Band-Aid off here, but it probably wasn't, not by any fair accounting anyway. But the question is whether you're going to let it teach you something or whether you're going to spend the rest of your life litigating the unfairness of it. Look, life ain't fair. There wouldn't be coaches and there wouldn't be so many coaches and therapists. Personal development would be this huge thing if life was fair. But we have to get off of that high horse, man. Life's not going to be fair. You just got to get through it. I wouldn't be here doing this, having these conversations, building what I'm building now, and I'm really proud of where I'm going with it, if I hadn't lost everything twice. I may have a successful business that I was miserable in working 80 hours a week. Who knows? No need to even go down that road. And I mean that without any performance, without any bitterness, and without any suggestion that it didn't hurt, because it hurt like hell both times. It just turned out to be maybe exactly what I needed. There's a line that I keep coming back to, and it's one of the few things I've found that actually names the mechanism behind the hollow feeling that we talked about at the start. It's only when we live in yesterday and tomorrow, simultaneously, constantly, that our destructive moods really start to take over. Not occasionally, right? Not in the moments of genuine crisis. We know that's going to happen, but constantly, like as a default setting. And I think that that's happening more and more, that we're not truly present. We're time traveling to the future or the past. We're always living there. Our brains are always there. We already touched on that piling effect, right? Like stacking past tragedies and future fears all on our shoulders until the present just gets like crushed underneath both. But I want to go deeper on the actual experience of this, because I think that most people, me included for a really long time, don't recognize how much of their waking life is truly spent somewhere other than where they physically are, which is supposed to be living in the present. Look, yesterday looks a lot like you're replaying a conversation from 2 weeks ago and editing your responses, as if it can change things, right? It's like, it looks like low-grade guilt about something you said or did or something you didn't say. Moment, reset. That the version of yourself you were in the moment, like you can no longer reach that person, that time. So it's like feeling that little bit of regret over maybe a snappy comment that you made at work last week or at a happy hour, and you wish that you had approached the situation calmer or said something different. Or you're worrying about, the missed opportunity, like you're worrying about something you didn't say to maybe a loved one. You didn't tell them that you cared because at the time you hesitated or you kept quiet. And this is like a big one on me because I'm a guy and was raised to be a man, And so that was one for me all the time. You run highlight reels of a relationship or a business or a version of your life that no longer exists. And you compare it unfavorably to the present because it's a past that you've selectively cleaned up. It's your highlight reel, right? You've cleaned it up in memory. You don't think of the bad. You think of, it's just like seeing a highlight reel on Instagram of someone else's. It's all the highlights. It's the good stuff. It's none of the bad. That's what you do with your memory too. You clean up all the bad. Like in my relationship that I talk about a lot because it hurt and I did genuinely love her, but there was bad too. I don't think of the bad until I make myself, right? But I didn't think of the bad when I was in the situation, and I was hitting rock bottom, and I thought of only the good. Um, but yeah, so it's days of this past relationship to your current feeling, which is maybe sure nostalgic, but very dissatisfied, to say the least. And maybe it's thinking about this previous career success or business success that you had. And you're imagining yourself back in that moment and how amazing it was, and feeling like pride, but also some longing for how things once were. And yesterday is very seductive because it's like a seductive mistress because it feels like unfinished business. Like if you just think about it long enough, you can resolve it or change it. And obviously, you can't. Give me a time machine, and yeah, I probably wouldn't be here either. But and tomorrow looks like Sunday night dread that maybe starts Saturday afternoon, even sometimes, about looming responsibilities on Monday or the week. And you're already overwhelmed before the week even starts. So you're 2 days off, maybe. You're stressed half the time. So that looks like building elaborate simulations of these conversations that may happen or that are gonna happen, but you're envisioning worst case scenarios that probably won't, and consequences or decisions that you haven't even made yet. You build elaborate situations on how a tough upcoming interview may be, or a client presentation, or a conversation that you know has to have will unfold. You weave in all these worst case scenarios about an upcoming confrontation with an acquaintance or a friend or a partner. Um, it looks like you have, like when you have anxiety about a future that you're treating as a fixed outcome, a fixed situation, when it's actually being written right now as we speak, or as you're thinking this, by what you choose today. So you start to worry about like if you don't start the project today, you'll never succeed and your future will be forever diminished, or you're feeling anxious about a delaying a decision that now is going to trap you in this less desirable life path and prompt overthinking about every small action you take today. I mean, those are a few examples. And tomorrow, here's the thing about tomorrow. Tomorrow feels productive. It's sneaky. It masquerades as planning. So you start to think that you're being productive. Oh, I'm getting ready for tomorrow. But most of the time, it's just fear with a calendar and a date and time attached. And neither of those places are real. Like, how often do you envision worst case scenarios and it doesn't even happen, right? Yesterday is a memory, which means it's already been edited by your brain into something that suits your story better, the story that you're currently running. So if you think it was bad, you magnify the bad, right? Whereas the other person it might not even be a thing. Tomorrow is a projection, which means it's entirely constructed of assumptions, right? But it can lead to, if you've heard of self-fulfilling prophecies, right? You think about something enough, like that's the path that you go down. Which is why visualization and stuff is so important, to think about the good, think about the path you want to go down enough. But the only place that anything is actually happening is right here, right now. And right now is the one place that most of us spend the least amount of time. And this is where 10 minutes of meditation a day seriously earns its reputation. And not in like some kind of mystical way. Everyone meditates once or twice, tries it out for 10 minutes. And if they don't have this profound experience that changes their life, they give up. That's not what meditation is, man. All right? It's just 10 minutes of sitting there where you are, not fixing on anything, not planning, not reviewing, not time traveling, just noticing what's here. Doesn't matter where you are, what's the situation. It's that feeling in your chest, the sounds in the room, the breath moving in and out, and not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow, or an hour from now, or an hour ago, or 5 minutes from now. And that practice, when done consistently, can train this capacity that has huge practical consequences for you. It's the ability to notice when you've drifted and just bring yourself back. That's it. That's seriously the whole skill. You sit with yourself here and now. You calm your mind. You notice when your mind starts wandering and going to what's happening tomorrow or what happened yesterday, or going to worst case scenarios on repeat. You drift, you notice, you return, all while remaining calm. Not reactionary. You don't get upset. You don't have a conversation in your own head about you drifting. That's natural. You just notice it and you bring yourself back. Bring yourself back to the breath. Bring yourself back to the now, over and over. And slowly, the drifting gets shorter and the returning gets faster. And you start spending more of your actual life in the place where your actual life is happening. See, it trains your brain to do that outside of meditation too. That's the beautiful part. It's just like the gratitude journal, right? Just like 5 minutes of gratitude journaling in a day trains you to start seeing everyday life as a more grateful thing, as something you're more grateful for. You start seeing the grateful moments that you would have missed before. You start noticing things through this gratefulness lens. And here, you start actually naturally being more present. First, you start drifting less and less, like spend less and less time drifting. You calmly pull yourself back, and then you start doing it less often. And the doom scrolling trap is worth naming here again as well because it's one of the most efficient delivery systems for yesterday, tomorrow cycle problem. The news cycle is structurally designed to keep you anxious about a future that you can't control and pissed off about a past that you can't change. It keeps you reactive and it keeps you absent. And when you do that every day, when you do that every morning, that's how you start to play in real life. So it's the exact opposite of gratitude, and it's the exact opposite of meditation and what those 15 minutes can do. So, and I want to say one thing. That's not a conspiracy. That's just how the attention economy works. They know that this is what's happening. They want us reactive. They want us pissed off. You know, they want us to purchase something on a whim without actually thinking about it. They want us reactionary in everything that we do. We spend more money. We get out there. We're propelling what they want in the economy by being this way. Outrage and fear, they keep you scrolling. Presence and contentment don't. The feed is not neutral. Every minute you spend in it is a minute you're not here. Every single minute. And hey, man, I'm not saying, put your head in the sand. You got to be cognizant of what the hell is going on out there, but you don't have to live in it. Reset. Outrage. So here's the challenge that costs you nothing and tells you a lot. For the next 24 hours, every single time you catch yourself in your mind yesterday or tomorrow, don't fight it, right? Don't judge it. Don't start that whole internal dialogue or conversation. Just notice it. Hey, there I go. There I went. And that's all. Just notice it. Noticing is a huge first step here because what you'll discover is how rarely you're actually here. And that discovery, as uncomfortable as it is exactly where the next shift begins. Because I want to talk about the 1% life. Here's, I think, where everything that we've talked about kind of compounds. The Hawaii collapse, the Thailand collapse, or rather maybe the Hawaii hollow, the Thailand collapse, if I'm going to name these in my head. The slow, unglamorous rebuilds, times 2, times 3, whatever it is now. None of it happened in a single dramatic moment of transformation. There was no morning where I woke up different, changed. It was a lot smaller than that. Embarrassingly small, you could say. Like I always say, make shit so small you're stupid not to do it. That's always taking that first step to at least break the loop. To break things loose. You need to do that. You need to take that step. One decision, then another, then another. One day, slightly less stuck than the day before, right? That's the whole architecture of how life actually changes. And it's almost insultingly simple compared to the version we tell ourselves or need, compared to the version that a lot of people out there say in this industry, unfortunately, right? Take this 10-minute course, it will change your life. And I'm not bagging on those 10-minute courses because I've taken a ton of them. There is a lot of good information out there. It's just really hard to capitalize on it when you haven't changed internally yet, when you haven't changed your identity, right? Hey, this sounds great. And then you go back to who you were. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, I should start this someday. It's just simple. So 1% better every day. Not 10%, not a total overhaul by February. 1%. The math on this is seriously worth sitting around and contemplating. A 1% daily improvement compounds to very roughly here. And this is just 1%. This is bare minimum, right? There's going to be some days where you have 2 or 3%. You're going to have some big days, especially if you start with 1%, start breaking through. But 1% improvement roughly compounds to like 37 times better over the course of a year. 37. Not because you did anything extraordinary, because you were consistent with something very ordinary. The comfort zone piece connects directly here. And I want to frame it as to you as a practice rather than an event. Because most people think of getting out of their comfort zone as this single big leap. Quit the job. I've done it. Quit the job. I've done them all. Sometimes all at once. Quit the job. Move countries. Make the dramatic gesture. But that's not how the edge actually works. The edge is where you are right now, right? And the practice is whatever sits just past it. Not way over here, not moving to another country, just past the edge. The one conversation you've been rescheduling for 3 weeks. The application that you've been sitting on because the timing isn't quite right, you're not quite ready, whatever it is. And it never is, by the way. That one post that you've been almost ready to put out there since October. That's your edge today, not someone else's, yours. Baby steps out of your comfort zone, they don't feel like progress when you're taking them. Honestly, they can feel like not enough. But that feeling is, and I want you to pay attention to this, it's the fixed mindset's last argument. This is too small to matter. And it's worth recognizing that for what it is, because back in some of my rough days, that was enough for me to say, okay, it doesn't matter if I don't complete this today. Right? The size of the action is not important. It's not the point here. The direction is. And here's the part of this section that I want you to pay a lot of attention to, because I think it's the highest lever in this entire blueprint. And as I mentioned, I think this is where everything kind of rolls up to, this 1% better every day. Most people, what they try to do is change their behavior while leaving their identity completely untouched. And I mentioned it before. They set new goals, they build new routines, they download new productivity apps, and they wonder why it doesn't stick. They take that 10-minute course, right? They wonder why it doesn't stick. It doesn't stick because underneath all of it, the identity hasn't moved. Your identity hasn't shifted. I am stuck isn't a behavior that you can work around. It's a verdict that you're operating from. This is who I am now. This is my identity. I am stuck. And behavior, it follows identity, not the other way around. When I rebuilt after Thailand, the actions weren't what changed first. It was this quiet, it was this private decision about who I was going to be, who I was going to show up as. Not who I wanted to become someday, but who I was starting now. Someone who moves. Someone who does the uncomfortable thing when it needs to be done. Someone who learns from the last attempt, from past mistakes, and goes again with that new knowledge. And look, that decision didn't happen overnight either. It took me a couple of years after Thailand of rebuilding to actually sit down and get comfortable with this, about changing who I was. Because a lot of times, even if we hate our lives, it's that comfort zone, man. We love it. We love it. Maybe we like being in that place where we complain about our lives. Some people do. Whatever it may be, you got to get out of that I am stuck mentality. And the actions, they flowed from that. Without that, without me changing who I was, without me making that decision and continually making that decision day over day, especially at the beginning, they wouldn't have held. I wouldn't have moved. The 5-minute gratitude journal we talked about, that's a 1% move. It's easy, right? It's stupidly easy. It's not the whole answer, but it's a first brick. You don't need to see the whole wall right now, all right? You just need to lay that first brick. The 10 minutes of meditation daily, same damn thing. It's a 1%er. It's the next brick. And you do that, you start there, by December of this year, if you do nothing else but get that 1% better every day, your life will be unrecognizable. You will be unrecognizable. And I mean that in the best possible way. All right, so let's bring this home. And sorry for talking your ear off, but I had a lot of stuff I wanted to say in one big video that's like a manifesto / Bible of like how to get the hell better after you've gone through some shit. because I've used this a couple of times, and I love it. So hopefully you do as well. But so you started this video on a beach in Hawaii, feeling nothing, surrounded by paradise, texting friends who were jealous of your life that you couldn't actually really even feel. That image, that external perfection and the internal absence, that's where we began because it's the most honest version of what stuck actually looks like. It's what I felt like, and it's what many people that I talk to feel like. They just don't know how to name it. Not broke, maybe not obviously broken, just hollow, just going through the motions of a life that looks fine from the outside, while something essential has gone quiet or numb on the inside. We named it. We traced the mechanics of why it happens. You have the imagination turned inward, the limiting programs that are running underneath all of our behavior, the piling of past and future until the present disappears in the weight of it all. We looked at FOPO and what it costs you. We worked through what it means to let them have their story and let yourself write a different one. We talked about failure as data, not a verdict. About moving your body before your mind follows. About gratitude as a filter that you can retrain. No as a prerequisite of yes. We talked about meaning as something you construct rather than something you receive. You create your meaning. And about the only place life is actually happening being right now in this moment, not 3 years ago and not tomorrow or next quarter. And all of it connects. Seriously, all of this was pointing at the exact same thing. You don't need a new life. You need a different relationship with the one you're already in. So here's the experiment. You know, I always have a 7-day experiment, right? 7 days, one small action each day, drawn directly from what we covered. So stupid simple that you have to do it. It's not a transformation program. I want you to get a feel for all of these things. Because while a 5-minute meditation session or a 5-minute gratitude journal session or a 10-minute meditation session, your first one, it's not going to change your day. It's not going to change your life completely. You will notice some small changes. You will notice some things in the moment. You will notice some things after. So I just say 7 days. Let's try them all. Not a commitment you need to maintain for the rest of your life starting immediately, but some things that I hope you will take away from it and go forward if you truly want to get out of where you're at. You want to change your identity. You want to start to do that 1% better every day. So 7 days of doing one thing differently and seeing what shifts. What are you starting to feel? And I would recommend having a journal by your bed. I always do, so I do my gratitude in it. I journal when I want to. But just write down maybe at night how you're feeling. How did that go? How did you feel? Very quick, though. Don't overthink it. So day 1, gratitude journal. 3 specific things, 1 focus, 1 release. 5 minutes, that's it. Do it before you open your phone. Even better, do it instead of opening your phone. Day 2, 1 no. 1 thing that you've been saying yes to out of obligation or FOPO, or not wanting to seem difficult, whatever it is, say no to it. Just 1. Day 3, a micro win. Not this big task that you've been avoiding, right? The smallest possible version of useful action. Could be part of that big task, whatever it is. You make the call, you send the message, you open the document, whatever it is. Reset. Day 4, 10 minutes of just being present. No content, no planning, no reviewing, just being present. Sit somewhere and just be in it. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, listen to some meditative music. I always do. Day 5, 1 step beyond your current edge. The conversation, the application, the post, whatever yours is, 1 step. Day 6, a let them moment. Find something that someone thinks about you or something that had happened that had upset you. Maybe there's a doubt, a judgment, a version of your story that they're carrying, and genuinely release it. Let them have it. You're writing your own story. You're doing your own thing. Day 7, name your new identity out loud. Not who you're trying to become, who you are starting now. Someone who moves. Someone who learns and goes again. Say it like you mean it, because you do. That's the experiment. That's it. 7 days. All that talking, all my talking and tangents that I love to go on for 7 minutes for a 7 day experiment. All right. The cost though to you is almost nothing. The alternative is another 6 months or a year or whatever of just going through the motions and feeling hollow and not feeling anything. And I don't think you watched 60 minutes of me blathering on because you're fine with that. I don't even know if blathering is the right term there, but we go on. I want you to do this easy stuff, and I want you to really feel it afterwards. And I hope you keep doing it because all of it, honestly, because none of it takes that much time out of your day, and the impact it all has, even just one of these things, the impact it has is massive. There's a book I've been writing that goes deeper into all this. It's called Uncaged, and it's built around the exact same journey from trapped to true purpose. It goes deeper on some things. It doesn't hit everything here. It's really part one, but this video is really the first step of that framework. And every piece that we've covered today lives inside of it. And I'll share more on that soon. But the manifesto is really simpler than any book. You are not your worst failure. You are not other people's opinions of you. You are not that hollow feeling on that beach or sitting in your office or the numbness of the aftermath of Thailand or the bad breakup or your lost job or your failed business or the gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be by now. That's not you. You are what you choose to do next. That's it. That's the whole damn thing. All right. I lost everything multiple times. I left paradise feeling nothing. I left Thailand with nothing. And I have never been more grateful for either of those moments because without them, I wouldn't be here doing this, having this conversation with you. And yeah, I mean, I miss it. Sure. There are things I miss, but I'm grateful. And I'm taking that as a win. And I'm moving forward with who I am. Drop a comment below with one thing maybe you're going to say no to this week, or one of these practices that really impacted you this week or has in the past. If this landed with you, subscribe, because I'm going to go deep on this whole hollow thing, this high-functioning hollow stuff. We're going to start describing this. We're going to say what happened, and we're going to get everyone out of it. So stop living for them. Start living for you. That's the whole thing.